better known as Brittlestar.
I know Stewart Reynolds, and I know Brittlestar.
The Adam Project's an amazing film. It's really, really enjoyable, and it's packed with the action and adventure and the wisecracking comedy that we've come to expect from your work. It's also surprising, though, myself and my wife Shannon were watching it, and really emotional parts, as mentioned in the film as well, which we weren't expecting, which reduced both myself and Shannon to puddles. And I just want to ask you the question, do you enjoy making old people cry?
Welcome to Black Bolt, everybody. My name is James DiFiore, and that was Stewart Reynolds, aka Brittlestar, just being his hilarious self. And I wanted to talk to him a little bit because there was a moment this morning where I was like, okay, they're both Canadians. They both have the same last name. Stewart and Ryan Reynolds, are they related? Which would be awesome. And we're going to ask him right now as we welcome our guest. Stewart, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey, I'm good, man. How are you doing? Thanks for having me, by the way.
No problem at all. I don't know whether to call you Brittlestar, Stewart. What do you like to be called during interviews like this?
I answer to a lot of things, and actually, what's really funny is right before I came down to be on this on your show, my wife started saying Stewart, and I was like, I don't like it when you use my name, but what do you call me normally? Is it like ass hat or something? Is that I'd probably respond more to that, maybe. What's funny about the Brittlestar thing, though? Well, exactly. What's funny about the Brittlestar thing is that people who have known me for years, like even prior to the whole Brittlestar thing, now just refer to me as Brittlestar or Brit, which is just, hey, Brit, which is just, I mean, I didn't ask for that, but it's fine. Yeah. I'll answer to anything, whatever you want.
I'm going to call you Stewart, if that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, that's fine.
It's just, yeah. But everyone knows you as Brittlestar. And I've read a couple things, but really instinctively, it's not that hard to figure out. You're one of those people who had a presence before the pandemic, but for all of the downside that this pandemic has shown our society, you're one of those people, and to a much lesser extent, I am as well, one of these people who kind of got to work when the pandemic started and sort of found their niche due to circumstances beyond our control. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a weird way, the pandemic was horrible for lots of reasons. But I mean, what was weird for us is that first week of the pandemic, so 2 years ago, essentially 2 years ago to this week, we lost like a year's worth of business, which meant like we had a bunch of branded content stuff and all that kind of stuff that just disappeared into the ether. And then we panicked. Then it kind of slowly came back, little bits here and there. But then what became really evident was the idea that because I created and produced and edited and published content for my house, it was kind of like, okay, well, nothing's changed there for me. I just have to keep doing that. So I kind of like sort of stepped on the gas a little bit. And we've been really, really fortunate. And it's also nice to use a platform for good as well.
Yeah, and you've been at this for almost a decade, right? You've been doing online content. What is your career trajectory like? Like, where were you 20 years ago, and what were you doing?
Career.
I thought I was the only one that would air quote career, but I guess not.
So did you say 20 years ago? That's fascinating. I've never been asked.
Yeah, I'm
20
just
years
curious
ago.
what you were doing. Like, I like to understand how someone got to where they were, because I know that I took the road less traveled, and it's not a normal story. So I just want to know, like say at the turn of the millennium, what were you doing, and how did you end up doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, so like in 1998, we started a business. Primarily because I'd always essentially been self-employed since I was 19. I did I was a jingle writer and jingle producer, like for radio, which I did on my own in my parents' basement. And then when I moved out, I continued that job, which was great. And then in the sort of 1998, Shannon and I were expecting our first child. And we actually had a conversation. We're like, well, it'd be really nice if we're both home for this baby. That'd be great. We should just start a business. So we basically sort of thought about what we wanted to do and then found something I was interested in, which happened to be like internet based, because it was certainly a big boom time for that. And So we started our business in '98, and then that business lasted for 10 years, and then there was like 5 years of absolute pain and depression, and then it turned into this. So that's easy. That's the formula right there. Success, wheels come off, collapse, 5 years of serious depression followed by 9 years of hilarity.
Yeah. That is a good form. You should do online classes, like the master class, right?
Exactly. This is what you do, kids. Set up a business, wait for it to collapse, then
Yeah,
be
that's right.
destitute, and hope to God someone invents an app.
Yeah. Because people were like, there was a lot of people trying to do online content back in the day. And what I found is that, like, I had friends that were doing like silly little cartoons for like joke sites,
Yeah.
like and stuff like that. But they were making like at the time like 150 grand a year, and I'm like,
Crazy.
I'm confused. How do you monetize this stuff? Like how does this content make money for you?
Well, there's a few different ways that it happens as far as monetization goes. I mean, there's the obvious one, which is monetization on YouTube, but that's so random amounts of money. There's a million factors involved in the algorithm that decides, or the formula that decides how much you get paid per video. One video that has a million views might make $300, and another time it'll make $3,000. So there's lots of things at play as far as that goes. But I mean, for us, the way we determined we could make money was that back in 2013 we were on Vine, and we got some success. We had some success on Vine, and like 3 sort of really big viral videos, and then Disney contacted us and we're like, well, if you want to make some videos for us, we'll pay you, and then we'll fly down to California and you can have a good time with your family. And I was like, this is crazy. And then we literally, down in California during that event, we spoke to a bunch of their content creators. We're like, what do you do? What's your job? And they were like, this. And then my wife and I, Shannon and I, had another conversation, much like in '98. And we're like, I think we could do this. I think we could I would like to spend more time with the kids. I would like to travel. And I would like to not have to eat lentils every single day. So let's do this.
Jesus. Your wife would like it if you didn't have to eat lentils every single day too, I imagine. Yeah. How many kids do you have?
Two children, 2 boys. Yeah, they're 20 and 23 now, so they're no longer cute. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
they're just other people now.
They're draining money. Are they in school though? Like, did they end up going to post-secondary and all that?
Yeah, they're both in media production at Ryerson actually, so in Toronto, and it's been great because the younger one has also his job is social media content creator as well. He's got a very big following on TikTok and does branded deals and all that kind of thing. Speaking gigs is most recently his thing, which is great. And then the older one is much more involved in production and is like an award-winning podcast producer. So that's pretty great. So hopefully I won't have to work forever. I'll just be able to be incontinent and have them take care of me.
Yeah, I would say my son is 7, and I've been for the last 2 months I've been teaching him how to say the following: a loser on the lam, a little Italy, literally a little league legend at 11, allegedly. And he can say it now exactly like that. And my goal is to get him to be like the first under age 10 rapper who can do tongue twist raps, so that I can also live off of his
I think that's
success.
I think it's a good idea. I think if you look at hockey dads who send their kids into hockey, I think making your kid learn Rap God is just as important, which is good.
It's true. And if they fuck up, you just give them a little shot. Like they'll take it like a no, I would never do that.
Don't
in fact,
do
my
that.
my kids hit me. It's funny because I used to get woken up every morning with a leg drop, like the Hogan finishing move.
Yeah.
By my daughter.
Yeah.
Luckily, she's like really tiny. So it would almost be fun waking up like that. And then my son decided that he wanted to smack everyone's bum in the house.
Okay. Yeah.
He wasn't aware though that if you walk up behind a male, you got to have you got to aim for a cheek.
Well, you got to you can't go you can't goose. You can't goose or you're going to have a handful. And that's no.
And I tried to explain it to him. And he's like, Daddy, it doesn't hurt me when Lizzie hits me on that part of the bum. And I'm like, son, there are so many caveats to try to explain to you right now as to why what you just said is not relevant to my experience. But anyways, yeah. Listen, I think what you're doing, I'm a huge fan of your work. And one of the main reasons that I love what you do so much is because when you play different characters, you have been able to hone your style so well that you don't really have to play different characters. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's you can please give me an example. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to give you an example really quickly because this is one of my favorite ones. So I'm going to just play this right now.
Well, the villains in the new Raiders of the Lost Ark movie have finally been announced. No, oh, wait, that's not the right story. Man hoping to get people to vote for him to be prime minister, which isn't even possible, Pierre Poilievre, has said in a recent video posted to social media that Prime Minister Trudeau should follow Saskatchewan's lead and legalize smiling. Listen, I know there's a lot going on in Ukraine, but it's nice to finally talk about the real suffering happening right here in Canada. Of course, I'm kidding, and I hope Mr. Poilievre is too, because everyone knows smiling is a provincial issue. In a video posted on social media, Mr. Poilievre demonstrated what can only be described as WGPTBO energy. That's white guy pretending to be Oprah energy, by whipping a maskless crowd into a frenzy about having to wear masks. I'm not going to say that complaining about having to wear masks like it's some sort of tyrannical plot against your freedom like the sneeze guards at Subway comes across a little privilegey, but I do think it provides a pretty good indicator of the freedoms we currently enjoy in Canada. If, in the midst of an ongoing pandemic that has cost millions their lives and thousands their jobs and businesses, your biggest complaint is about having to wear a mask at Sobeys so you don't accidentally make someone who hasn't been vaccinated yet very ill, and it's been over 2 years of this, so really, what don't you understand yet? You may already be, in fact, free. And very, very not smart. Freedom isn't no rules, that's anarchy. We all hate masks. We'd all be happy if we didn't have to wear them. Except for outside in winter in Canada, because it's like a removable beard that keeps your face warm. And they'll never take that away from me because freedom. We look forward to Mr. Poilievre tackling other pressing issues that threaten Canada's freedom, like why aren't Shamrock Shakes available year-round? And, more importantly, was Jerome the Giraffe from The Friendly Giant just a tool for the woke left?
It's always you. That wasn't the greatest example. The best examples are the ones where you play like the American and the Canadian who live side by side. And it's like, hey, America. Oh, hey, Canada. And it's like, I just don't know many entertainers and or comedians or whatever that have been able to sort of like harness only themselves. When they are when they do skits like this.
I mean, it's kind of out of necessity, right? Because I mean, I'm not the greatest actor in the world. I don't know if you know that or not, but I'm not.
I think you're brilliant because of your
well,
simplicity.
I appreciate that.
Really, yeah.
But I mean, I one of the things when we started doing social media content creation as like a full-time gig and really kind of leaning into it, one of the things that was evident to me was that I was going to have to make a lot of content. And I would do characters initially, and I was like, I can't keep this up. One, because I suck at it, and then two, because it's tiring. So why don't I just be myself? I'll just take a leaf out of like Jack Nicholson or Leo DiCaprio's or Jennifer Aniston's book and be like, this is what you get. And God, I hope you like me. So that's kind of like that's been my MO, is just kind of be a slightly exaggerated version of myself in any direction.
Ryan Reynolds is sort of like that. Like he's kind of
totally
the same dude, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously taken that idea from me. So
yeah, clearly,
no.
I don't know. Do you are you friends with people like that? Like, are they just people that know you from your online work?
I mean, there's a really weird mix of people. I mean, Ryan and I only kind of know each other. It was really nice when we filmed that thing that you showed at the top of the show. That was the first time we'd met in person. So it was nice to actually meet, which was good. And he didn't go, "Who the hell are you?" which is nicer. But I mean, there's like really weird things. Like I find like that's one of the cool parts about being on social media and creating content on social media is that if it gets spread out quite wide, you have these interesting people. Like, I've got like like Ben Stiller or something, or Yvette Nicole Brown or something, where it's like, this is weird. These people are even aware of my existence. That's pretty cool. But I don't know if Friends is a big jump. So.
Yeah. Gerald Butts blocked me, so I know he knows who I am, right? So it's nice. You don't block someone unless you know them.
Oh, that's a shame. That's too bad. Gerald's got some funny stuff sometimes.
Yeah, he's okay. Like, what's weird is that we live in such polarized times, right? Like, and I don't really pick a side, and that's not my way of saying that both sides are equal and on every issue we should all have the same.
Sure.
But I don't really like either side all that much. I'm just, I'm not a fan of people who stick a flag somewhere, and no matter what the issue is, they just run back to the flag and they hold on for dear life. And it's weird because, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people about how I feel I've always sort of felt like I checked all the big boxes when it comes to being like a progressive, right? Like I'm anti-war. I believe in man-made climate change. I believe in a societal safety net. I'm not a big fan of identity politics because I find that it gets a little bit too in the weeds, and people search not for context but for keywords. And once you start searching for keywords and you say the wrong keyword, even if it's unbeknownst to you, your day's ruined because you get a big mob of people telling you how horrible you are. And those are the kind of things that, and I think that is really the linchpin that has made people who thought they were left reconsider what they might be. And because I think most of us land in the middle. And I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on that, on where people land or where people think they land and all that kind of thing on the political spectrum?
A couple of things jump to mind. I mean, one is I understand the necessity in Canadian politics to have a party system. I get it. And that's just how things move forward. But I think I always apply the Groucho Marx rule, right? Like people are like, well, you're being biased. You're just a liberal tool or something. And it's like, no, I've never been a member of any political party. I have no intention of being a member of any political party. And I have zero intention of getting into politics because it sounds like the most god-awful job in the world. And I just really don't care enough about people to actually do it well. And it's so that's it's the Groucho Marx rule of like I wouldn't belong to any club that would consider me as a member, would have me as a member. So I think that there's a problem. Like there's what's interesting is there's a couple things. One is that you're right. There's like it's like almost like keyword politics identity, especially with social media. Is people are desperate for some black and whiteness to an issue. They want to have like the contrast. They want to turn the contrast up as much as possible so they know that they're doing, the right thing or that they're on the right team or something. And I think that was, I think that was kind of spurred on, when we watched what happened in 2016 in the US, and watching, Trump and all that kind of stuff come up and the QAnon people coming up, and you sort of thought, I remember looking at it going, I don't particularly want to care about the U.S. politics whatsoever, but this sort of is now venturing beyond just policies. This looks like it's beyond policy, and now it's gone to like just plain old rights and wrongs now. But at the same time, I think it's foolish to be like, like especially in Canada, it doesn't matter where you are, even let's stay in the States. I think it's foolish to be like the Democrats can do no wrong. The Republicans can do no right, and vice versa. It's like, well, that's just not the case, because it's just a group of people. I mean, you can't. That's the nature of being a human, is that just because you're in the same club doesn't mean you're all going to do the right thing. So, I mean, you're right. I think that identity politics thing is horrible. I mean, even what's his face? What's his name? Travis from CBC. Travis Denarge. Is that his name?
Oh, CTV. Yeah.
CTV. And
his
him asking the
about,
question, is the prime minister just here for a photo op? And it's like, to me, my personal opinion of that question was kind of like, well, that's a stupid question because this is like a huge deal, and
Yeah.
even if there is a photo
There's a
opportunity
war
there,
going on.
there's a war going on, man. I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you're a journalist. You're allowed to ask questions. They could be stupid as all hell, and if they're stupid, you'll probably end up getting a chance to ask less questions next time because they're too stupid.
Yeah.
So it's
Or
not
in
a
his
big deal.
case, in his case, that's a very good example because what happened after that was he kept on sort of quoting his own tweet, and he kept on talking about how people are giving him a hard time, and then he would post it again and talk about how people are giving him a hard time. And I just tweeted to him yesterday, maybe stop talking about it.
I know, and it's really interesting. I mean, I've been certainly. I don't envy journalists either right now as well because of that exact reason where he was getting harassed and threatened, and it's like, if you think it's a stupid question, whatever, man, just let it go, forget about it. It's definitely you can't harass people for doing that kind of thing. You don't harass journalists or threaten them, that's for sure. But at the same time, I mean, it's a weird thing. I mean, I've received lots of hate and lots of negative stuff slung my way, and it's super easy to. Oh yeah, it's super easy to get caught up in that notion that you have to get into a dialogue with people. You have to push it. I mean, it's happened recently with someone I know who's a content creator, and they were getting tons of abuse and about something they had said, and it was kind of like, well. Like my opinion would have been just drop it, man. Just like leave it because you have zero obligation to get into a dialogue with anybody on social media. So you don't have to worry about it. Plus everybody who's smart is looking at it going, I kind of agree. Whatever. Who cares? Whatever. But it's all the weirdos and the whack jobs who are out there who are like,
vaccines, right?
And it wasn't even vaccines. It was about Ukraine. And it's just really bizarre. And it's just like, you guys are fighting for the sake of fighting. And this person I know just wouldn't let it go. And it ended up becoming a huge deal. And it was like, oh, man, like just it's never worth it. It's that notion that you have to get into a dialogue with people on social media. That's an instilled notion that we have been trained to do over the past 10 years of like engage, click like, comment, all that kind of stuff. You don't have to do any of that stuff.
Yeah, that's that whole thing about like everyone's opinion is valuable, and it's not.
No, it's not.
It's just not. Your opinion is not informed, and you're a little crazy. So,
I always think it's like when you walk through a bar and you're going through a bar and you pass someone on the way to the bathroom who says something stupid at you, and you're like, okay, should I waste the rest of my night by getting into a dialogue with this person, or should I recognize the fact that this person's going to probably soil themselves in the next hour and be barfing up back, and I'll just let it go. I'll be fine,
Maybe if you get lucky, when he falls down, his cocaine will fall out. You can have a bit of a party at his expense. He won't even
don't
be
do
the
that,
wiser.
kids. Don't do that.
No, don't. Trust me. Woo, do not do that. That was a rough period in my entire 30s.
Right before this show, I hope not.
No. I stopped.
That's good.
I stopped drinking a couple years, like 2 years,
really,
and 3 months ago. Yeah. As a way. At the time, as a way to prove my wife wrong, who told me that I could never stop drinking. So I was like, oh yeah,
that's all right. Yeah.
You want to see me get rid of a 20-year habit just because you said that? I'll do it. And I did it. And I found that with alcohol was, I don't know why I'm taking this left turn, but anyway,
that's right.
Alcohol was always that sort of first domino. So it's like, if I'm drunk, then I'd probably do cocaine. But if I'm sober, I definitely wouldn't. It was one of those things. What replaced all of the drinking and the drug use and everything was crippling anxiety. So it's like, yes, what are these? Feelings. Oh my goodness. I'm feeling all of the shit that's happened my whole life. And it's one of those things. I don't know if you've ever gone down the road of drinking way too much and then adding a whole bunch of other stuff to it. But it's an interesting.
I've been fairly fortunate, I think, in that there's elements to my personality that I tend towards like addictiveness. And I know that my wife won't let me gamble at all, only because of one trip we took to a casino when we were like 24. And I was like, yeah, but this time it's going to work. This time it's going to work. And she's like, you're crazy. We're leaving and never coming back. And it's like, this is a good idea.
I've lost 12 pounds in the last 10 minutes because of the sweat coming from my forehead.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, I think that I've been fortunate in the sense that drinking hasn't been. I've never been a binge drinker. I've never been like a let's get hammered drinker. I've always been kind of like I'm gonna have a couple beers. It's gonna be good, and then I'm gonna go home, and
Where did you
that'll
grow
be
up?
it. Where did I grow up?
Yeah.
In Stratford, Ontario, right where we moved back to. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So you're
a small town.
Yeah, Stratford. I mean, Stratford is. I've never actually been there, and I've always wanted to go just to go see the theater because a lot of people that I know used to go like every year, and then I guess Justin Bieber is your most famous export.
Well,
is he
apart
someone
from
that
me.
like? Yes, the second most famous export, Justin Bieber, next to Brittlestar, of course.
Exactly.
He's a fixture though sometimes there, isn't he? And like you guys are kind of used to having him around. Yeah, hey, Justin,
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think, Justin, first of all, Justin always got a hard time. And I remember him busking outside the theater before he went down to Georgia and all that kind of stuff and to Atlanta. And, you just knew he was crazy talented and just phenomenally talented kid. And he, I always think when he was 19, I think it was, he was worth $65 million. And I thought, man, if I was 19 and worth $65 million, you wouldn't see me for dust. I'd be gone. I'd be buying things, doing things, whatever. Whereas he came back, he would like do shows and like donate money to the food bank and help people in town and like all this kind of stuff where it's like he didn't have to do any of that stuff, but he would come back and it was really fun. When he was dating Selena Gomez, it like brought her back and went to like Madeline's
Pubs.
Diner, which is a great diner, and
Nice.
but just like places he would go as a kid where he's like, you got to come see this. It was really weird to be like, hey, there's Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez in Madeline's front window. That's weird. So yeah, cool.
I think Justin Bieber is like one of the most talented human beings on the planet. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like when he first, before he became famous, I remember seeing his YouTube videos. This must have been just right on the cusp or whatever,
Yeah.
just before he sort of became famous. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like I kind of wanted not to like him because when I was young,
Sure.
yeah, it was New Kids on the Block and stuff, like boy bands and everything. And like my music was like, I only listened to hip hop. And so like, I used to just like constantly harass the girls in my school for liking New Kids on the Block. I'm like, they're awful, blah, blah, blah. And so I had a weird reflex when Justin Bieber, when I first discovered him, and I had to actually like tell myself to shut the fuck up because this kid, it was talented. Like he could play guitar, he could play piano, he could sing, he could rhyme, he could dance, he could do all of these amazing things. And Jesus, if I had $65 million when I was 19, I would have been dead in a week. There's no question.
No, right? I can't imagine
all.
that kind of pressure, right? Like the pressure to be able to do whatever you want would have been insane. But yeah, no, he's a
I'd still be
phenomenal.
dead. If anyone's out there wants to give me $65 million, don't, because I'll be dead. I still haven't.
But you should give it to me. If you're looking to give $65 million away, I would last at least 2 weeks
I
at
will
this
definitely
age now.
keep that in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So I joked with an email when I asked you to come on about how and I'm not really truly I'm trying to create characters for to launch my TikTok account because
Okay,
I've been
sure.
avoiding TikTok like the plague.
Yeah, you
because I
can't.
just feel as soon as I saw Jagmeet sing, shuffle, and jive, I was like, I can't do this. Like I'm too old for this or something. But I got some. So you are the expert as far as I'm concerned of like creating characters to get a sort of a political satirical point across. I'm a little less subtle, so I wanted to play the very first Sergeant Cletus video that I'm not sure if you've seen this or not because it was on YouTube. And so I have two videos. I'm going to show you the first one, and I want you to be like brutal, okay? Brutally honest, no matter what. Okay, here we go. And he's a supporter of the convoy, as you'll soon see.
Okay.
Oh, hey, how's it going? I just want to tell everybody that the Trucker Convoy 2022, and there's a hashtag in front of it. It's called a hashtag. It's not a hash brown, Randy. Not a hash brown, bud. And we just want to let Lenny and Terry and Brian, and Brian, I know you're pissed at me, man. I owe you a couple of oxys, but I got them, buddy. I'm going to put them in my ass because I don't want any of Trudeau's stormtroopers to come and get me. So, but listen, we'll meet you at Rideau Canal and we'll break out some rye and some beer, and then we'll take over the government, man. This is so sweet, man. All right, peace, man.
All right. It's a work in progress.
I love it. It's fantastic.
I don't have any training, as you may have guessed.
Who does? Who does these days?
But it's so much fun. Like, this is why I admire you so much, because like what you just saw is like a bastardized version of what you do, and it's your job. Like,
yeah, no, I'm like crazy lucky to be able to do it. I mean, that was great. I enjoyed that. It was really funny. I mean, the thing is, with especially the notion you have to keep in your head with social media and digital media in general is that it's like the means of production are so cost effective. They're almost negligible. You probably already have a phone with a camera and a video capabilities and audio capabilities, and it's like you've got a TV studio in your pocket and a TV network in your pocket. You can just distribute that thing out to millions of people, which is phenomenal. And I think the key to remember is that the only way you can turn something into something that's a commodity or saleable or marketable is by continually doing it. It's the train's got to be leaving the station. You're never going to be, it's not like you're going to get to a magic point where you're like, okay, good. Now it's ready. It's ready to take it out to the masses and people are going to love it. Because it doesn't matter what you do. Someone's going to think it's crap and someone's going to think it's genius. So just keep creating, just keep doing stuff, you know?
Yeah, I don't want to overstate this, but like, I am truly inspired. Like, I go every day to see if you've posted something new.
Oh,
and
wow.
I look at it.
Thank you.
And I really do, because I think, again, like, I don't think there's a lot of people that can do what you do. I'm certainly a person that wouldn't attempt to do it the way that you do it, because of the ambiguity behind your characters. Like, my favorite one, I don't have it queued up. I've had a lot of issues trying to upload videos today, but the where you're swimming outside of I think it's the Titanic.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, that must have been so much fun to film, because literally you're just like,
it's the worst swimming action ever. It's green screened. I'm doing this, and it cuts off across the arms. I realize I have to keep my hands up, and I'm just sort of pushing the air aside.
Yeah, and it's you like treading water beside you as you talk to both of yous. Yeah, and I'm just like, oh man, like, did you have to come to the realization that, hey, instead of trying to play other characters, I'm just going to constantly be me, tweak it like 6% so I can put on a slight American accent here and there, but otherwise, it's like, did someone have to tell you to do that, or were you just like, I think I'm just going to be me the whole time, and that's going to be hilarious in and of itself?
I think for myself, it became evident that the wilder I made the characters, the less convincing they were. And it became more about the wildness of the character and less about what I was saying, like with the actual message or the content or whatever. And
I think I'm in that stage right now. Wait,
but so saying, yeah, please.
Hold on. Okay. Here's my second. And again, guys, for people who are listening and watching, this is not braggadocious time for James. This is like walking up to Mr. Miyagi and showing him my front kick. So just hold on one second.
Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Sergeant Cletus. Now, I just want to reiterate what was said at the convoy just yesterday when they were talking about Justin Trudeau, and what they were saying was that he's got a mind of a 22 and the world's like a 357 Magnum. That's right. Hold on one second. Randy, buddy, you don't have to drink out of the jerry can. Not out of the jerry can. There's a bottle right there with gasoline in it for you, bud. Anyways, now we're back, and we're never going to leave, man. It's going to be awesome. And what we're going to do by the end of it all is that we're going to put this coronavirus on ice.
The Krusty the Clown.
I like how it's Sergeant Cletus. I like how he's nervous. I like how he's like he wants to be confident, but just as a nugget in the core of his being, it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why he talks to Randy off camera, because Randy is obviously a lot more fucked up than he is. So
he feels an obligation to Randy.
Yeah, he does. But this past year has really, like, especially that convoy. There's a lot to be a little bit concerned about. There's so much to laugh at. Like,
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. I think that, it's one of those situations. Like, it's the cliche, right? Of like, if you don't laugh, you'll cry, because there's so much stuff happening. There's a really great comedian, Matthew Green, in the UK, who he posted a clip from one of his stand-up sets, and he was like, "It was really nice how we went from pestilence to war, wasn't it? That was great, wasn't it?" That's sort of there was no transition. He said literally to the day. It's like COVID ended on the 24th, and then boom, the war started right away. So I mean, there's a ridiculousness to that, and there's a ridiculousness to life in general, right? And I think that's kind of that's the thing. If you can tap into that, people are like, oh yeah, it is ridiculous. I can take a breather now. There's some comic relief, which is good. So it's really important to be able to do that, I think.
where do you think our media comes into play when it comes to how ridiculous things can be these days? Again, I'm not like the Fox News is aside, because they're easily. Actually, let me rephrase. It's easy to identify Fox News as like an obvious problematic network. Like it's just it spews like a lot of things that aren't factual. It's very ideological. Obviously, it's a conservative, like hardcore conservative network. What I think people have trouble with is identifying the other side of media and how it's ridiculous, because it's not ridiculous in the exact same way as Fox News. So, like if I'm going to use the American network as an example because it's the easiest one. MSNBC spent most of the end of the Obama years chastising the intelligence agencies and people who led them because of things like the Snowden revelations. And so they were openly saying things like, perhaps James Clapper belongs in prison for lying to a Senate committee about whether or not Americans were being spied on by their intelligence agencies. And then when Trump got into office, they had him as a contributor and never questioned anything he said. And it's that kind of ridiculousness that people are not really attuned to, because they define Fox News as ridiculous. They're like, well, there's nothing on the left that's like Fox News, but it's just a different style of ridiculousness, isn't it?
Oh, for sure it is. I mean, I think that it goes to like when you think about television news specifically, actually a TV or newsprint, it's very much the if it bleeds, it leads. It's meaning like it doesn't matter. Whatever's sensational that'll make people linger longer on the newspaper, or will make them stay longer on the TV channel. I mean, that's kind of what they want, because they want to make sure that they can sell ad time. And I mean, that's just part of business. It's just kind of it, really. It's kind of like with the covering, I'm not going to say the trucker convoy or something like, but the occupation in Ottawa or at the Ambassador Bridge or out in, Manitoba or wherever. It's like, this is a very, very small minority. It's still an important story to cover. It doesn't require maybe that much coverage because impact wise, it's big. But we don't need to like hear from them because we know it's the wrong thing. But at the same time, they need to, there's an obligation for the news to cover that stuff. But at the same time, if it's exciting and people watch it, then they're going to cover more of it. To me, from a social media perspective, I mean, I have a really big issue with algorithms. I think that algorithms are the reason that we're kind of in this mess with social media and disinformation as it is. Because, I mean, disinformation's always been out there. Like, I've been online since 92. And you could go on Usenets and find whatever you want, any kind of thing you wanted, but you had to go look for it, as opposed to, happening to, it's like, it'd be like if in 1992 I went to a Usenet about, UFO crash lands in Saskatchewan. And then I would see nothing else after that except for UFOs crashing everywhere. And I'd be like, God, it's happening everywhere. This is what's going on now. Look, it's everywhere. It's all over the Usenet. Of course, that wasn't the case. I'd have to go looking for this information. And I think the problem is you've got people who see something about, like right now, it's the biolabs in Ukraine and it's like, there's biolabs there, but this has been explained before a million times. But then you search for that stuff, and then the algorithm's like, oh, here's some more crazy stuff we can show you. Check this out.
Yeah.
And then you believe that's all there is. I mean, the big thing recently for me is on Twitter with the home feed and the latest tweets on your app. At the top, there's a home feed, which is algorithmically curated to what it thinks you'll like, and also tweets that you might have missed. So tweets you might have missed, good service in a sense that you might have missed something, from a few days ago or whatever. That's whatever if you want to explore some more stuff. But the algorithmic portion of it, it's like it's night and day between your latest tweets from people you follow and home. And that you can go to home and think, oh God, it's all happening. Like, this is the end of the world. This is really, really terrible. Until you step away from that and go, oh, wait a minute. That's not the accurate picture. That's just kind of what it thinks I want to see, which I do not want to see.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I've talked about that on Dean Blundell's podcast a bunch of times about the algorithm is really the enemy. Like, it wasn't even a necessary tool. You know what? It was a necessary tool for YouTube and for Facebook and Twitter to keep us divided. But it didn't do shit for my viewing pleasure. Like, I don't hit the sidebar ever anymore. There's no rabbit hole for me to go down to that makes sense. It's all a repeat of what I've just watched, just packaged differently.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube. YouTube's kind of a special case because they're not a social media platform. They're a video distribution site and a search engine. So they had a better need for algorithms, but at the same time, I mean, there's better ways to do what they do. And I mean, YouTube actually flew me down to California about 5 years ago to take part in this like talk and meetings about how they wanted to encourage me to build my YouTube subscriber base and invest more time in YouTube. And they're really lovely. They're really great. But then like one of the guys said to me there, listen, I'd done a series called World's Most, and it was like maybe 7 videos or something that I had made. I really tried hard on them and stuff, and just interesting sort of trivia things like World's Most Expensive Treehouse, really weird stuff, like nonsensical, silly stuff. And so I did that, and when I was down there, they said to me, we love the World's Most series. It's amazing. And I was like, oh my God, you guys have watched it? Because I was getting like 300 views a video at the time on those things. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, that's amazing. Thanks for watching. It's like, we think if you want to do really, really well, if you want to take a look at the trending, maybe if you did something on slime, because slime was really big at the time, do something on making like homemade slime. I'd be like, what? You want me to just like not do my show and do something else instead? Yeah, like do the stuff that people are already looking for. I was like, well, as a creator, that's like zero interest to me. That idea of like, it's very industry focused way of looking at it. It's like the music industry saying, this song is a breakout hit that came out of nowhere and sounds like nothing else. Let's make 50 more songs that sound just like it. It's that idea.
It's funny, and it's funny that you use music as sort of analogy for that. A friend of mine was a hip hop producer, and a guy from Universal, I think it was, called him up and was like, listen, all right, you're in the big time now. You got to program a single for Britney Spears. And he was amazing. Like stoked. This was like 15 years ago or something. And the guy was I think it was an A&R, or maybe it was a producer, but he was like, but listen, I know you're a hip hop guy, but I don't want you to make this like a totally hip hop track. And my buddy was like, okay. And then he's like, and then James, you know what I did? And I'm like, got the dirtiest hip hop beat you could find and send that to him. He's like, exactly. And they took it. And he called them and he was like, thank you for not making it too hip hop. And my buddy's like, it's the most hip hop thing I've ever sent anyone. And so the what's interesting about that is that I think sometimes the people in the know, they give advice like that, like content advice like that. And you probably could have turned around the next day and did something that you wanted to do, and it could have gotten like a few 100,000 clicks, and it had nothing to do with his advice, right? Like he wanted you to be able to take like what was hot that day, make a quick video, flush it out, because the SEO would still sort of complement whatever it was that you were releasing.
Yeah, I think there's also that notion that especially anything that's related to media and the arts, and they want to monetize that and quantify that. I mean, business works best when you've got projectionable numbers and bottom lines. You know what's going to happen. Do this, do this, do this. You get this. And of course, that's just not how it works. I mean, I think that sometimes it works like that. But at the same time, it's from a creative perspective, it's like, well, people are just going to get tired of me and move on to somebody who's brave enough to do something original instead.
Like something about slime.
Exactly. So I mean, at the same time, it's just. I mean, I think there's people that we know that we're friends with who have been creators since like when we started, who have made millions of dollars by doing just that, by being like, I have no desire to make anything creative. To me, I just want to do what people want, and I will just sell them that. And they've done really, really well. And I don't have any. I mean, there's obviously a little bit of bitterness there, but at the same time, it's like if you can do that, great. I would love to be able to do that, but I just can't. I can't get my head around that idea of as someone who's trying to be creative. Like the reason I do what I do is because I get to wake up in the morning and go, I want to do something like this today, and I just get to do it, which is pretty amazing. I don't want to be like, okay, what do I have to do today? I don't want to be in that situation.
And it might not be as current as slime, but it's still current, right? Like you're taking issues that are important to us right now. You're taking like big issues, big tent issues, like the pandemic. You must have done at least a couple dozen videos that sort of relate around that topic. So it's not like you're not current. Like they would be asking you to do like a Joe Rogan video or something like that now, probably, right? Like,
well, there's a
like
little
that.
bit of that. Yeah. I mean, like I have a podcast and it's very much just a conversational podcast, and there's going to be another aspect to the podcast that's going to be a bit more current affairs-y and a bit more zeitgeisty as opposed to just conversations. And it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But there is that notion of like, you look at your Russell Brands and your Joe Rogans, and they're very good at what they do. It's not for me, but they're very good at what they do. And I find it a little bit, it's like, I sort of feel, and all those types of people, I feel like probably could pretend to do that for 1 or 2 episodes and do it really, really well. But I just I don't feel good about it.
The Russell Brand one I was noticing on Twitter, I guess starting maybe 3 months ago or something, people were posting constantly about Russell Brand. What happened to Russell Brand? What's going on with him?
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if he's changed or if we've changed. There's, and even the Joe Rogan stuff, like I have a hard time, and then we might differ on this. I have a hard time blaming Joe Rogan for things because he says shit on his podcast. I just have a hard time doing it.
Sure.
I grew up. Do you remember Charles Barkley had that deal with Nike? And his entire tagline for the entire campaign was, "I'm not a role model."
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm very much like, I don't agree with a bunch of stuff that Joe Rogan says. I don't hate him, but I also don't think that he is like the cause of people dying from ivermectin overdoses.
Right.
And so I have a hard, and again, I feel like it's polarization. I feel like if you either hate Joe Rogan or you love him, and I like him as a friend.
Yeah, exactly. I don't feel that strongly about him either. Yeah. That's kind of my view on him as well. Is like I said, he's very good at what he does, and I don't have any strong opinions about him. In particular, I would say if someone said, "Do you like him?" I'd be like, "Not really." But I mean, that doesn't matter. I don't have to like him, and he doesn't need me to like him. That's fine. But I think that
I used to like him a lot more.
Fear Factor was great. Fear Factor and News Radio.
I'm not going back that far, but yeah. No, I mean, like, I used to like his podcast.
Right.
And like, I used to, and the reason why I liked it is because like, I've been fucking going on, like, my friends are tired of me talking about polarization because I've been talking about it for like 12 years or something.
Yeah.
And like, I saw it happening in the States and I'm like, it's happening here and like, blah, blah, blah. And so what I liked about Joe Rogan is that when he had people on his podcast, like I never actually sat there and was, is he left wing or is he right wing? Like, he hunts, but he also really likes Bernie Sanders. Like, it wasn't something that I thought. And now I feel like we're like, this invisible force is like telling us, ordering us to pick a side.
Yeah. Well, I think it was really difficult. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I let you finish.
I was done. Yeah, go ahead.
But I think the thing that's made it really difficult is the fact that when the pandemic hit, I think those of us who kind of got it and understood how viruses work in general,
I suddenly don't know how they work.
But that idea of like, it was no longer a situation of like, we can disagree and that's okay. It was like, we suddenly were forced to care about what everybody did. And it's like, I don't want to care. I don't want to care what someone does with their own body. Like I whatever, man, do your thing. Except now we're in the situation where it's kind of like, well, if those people don't get on board, we're all stuck in the same thing. And it was like, shit, I don't want to actually care about this, but now I have to care. So then it made it, I think people kind of, it made it easy to kind of be like, well, he's a terrible person. It's like, I don't think he's a terrible person. Well, he might be a terrible person. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know him. Yeah. But at the same time, it's kind of like, if this was anything else, like you mentioned the ivermectin thing, it's like, if that would be anything else to me, I'd be like, whatever, man. I don't care. Don't get the polio shot. I don't care. Don't get it. It's fine. It's up to you.
Yeah.
But this, it's kind of like, now you're just going to be one of these people traveling around who's going to maybe give it to someone who gives it to someone who ends up giving it to my mom and dad, and then they die. And I'm like, damn it. So I think that was the divider.
But imagine the video possibilities that you could put out after something like that happened.
Dark black background, soft piano music. I'm there
my
already.
parents may have died, but I got 500,000 hits on this motherfucker, so I'm pretty happy
exactly.
about that.
This must have cleared about $2,000 in monetization.
Yeah. What's with that? Like, so I've heard horror stories about YouTube and like how many millions and millions of views you need in order to make like $10. Is there a scale that is it different for everybody? Like, do they have a standardized scale?
I mean, they kind of have a formula as far as I know, but I mean, that formula has so many variables in it that, X might mean this much one day and this much another day, and topic to topic as well. So it's, as I was saying, like you could have a video that has 1 million views that makes you $300 and another video with 1 million views that makes you $3,000. It really depends what else is happening. That's one of the interesting things about social media is that you have, as a content creator, as I was saying, you've got a television studio and a network in your pocket, but that also means you're competing with every single other piece of content in the world, meaning like everything on Netflix, everything on terrestrial television, everything on the radio. It's like one of my favorite stories is, which I always keep in my head whenever I release something and I think it's going to do well and it doesn't do well. I think to myself, okay, it might be the content, it might just be crap, but it also might have nothing to do with the content. It might be all marketing. So one of my favorite stories is David Hasselhoff, one of my longtime Twitter followers, who I think is fantastic. Hey, Dave. And he had bought Baywatch, and then that was a really smart move. And then he also created, to like capitalize on that, he made this TV special, really glitzy, a bit of a 80s, 70s leftover idea, but a glitzy sort of TV special variety show type of thing. And organized and negotiated time, like airtime on a big network. And it was going to be a big deal. And he was so ready. And as that thing was happening, O.J. Simpson and the White Bronco happened the same day. And he was like, nobody watched. Like nobody watched it because it was like, who's going to stop watching the Bronco situation, O.J. Simpson, to watch my thing? It's so that I always think to myself, that could have been the best TV special in the world. But because if it went out on any other day, it could have done crazy numbers. But
well, lucky for him, his daughter filmed him drunk eating a hamburger about a decade later, and it all worked out well.
Exactly. That's the kind of sex tape I would have released, probably. Yeah. Have no sex in it. It would just be booze and burgers.
Brittlestar in a burger. That'd be funny. Were you caught up in the OJ stuff? Because I have a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
I used to come home from high school. I was in high school. I used to come home, and it was I used to skip high school to watch the OJ trial.
Well, it was, it was such a huge cultural thing that was happening. And it was like, I think it was sort of like a precursor to how we're so aware of celebrities' lives now as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously murder is a pretty big one. That's one that it's hard to hide. But I mean, it was one of those situations where you're like, but he's a great athlete. And one of my favorite scenes ever in film is the opening scene of Naked Gun, where he gets shot a million times and then has like that really long death scene where he like backs, puts his hand in a cake, goes against wet paint, puts his hand in a hot stove, and everything's like these, yeah, exactly, these sort of small horriblenesses that have happened, but he's already been shot like a million times. Yeah. And it's one of the best scenes ever. And you're like, damn it, that guy's a murderer? Oh, that sucks.
I know. It was also how cable news took its, like they took all their lessons from OJ, right? Like that's why everything that happened, every big story that happened since then was saturated to death, for weeks and weeks on end. Like, the JonBenet Ramsey, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Like, it was just constantly there. It destroyed news. I was going through journalism school just after that, just after the OJ stuff. And I remember looking at my professor like crooked-eyed because he reiterated basically what I thought cable news was, which is if it bleeds, it leads. Like he still used that phrase in 1996. Yeah. And then what happened is that I had an assignment. My first assignment was to go talk to a woman whose son and husband just died in a fire. And I couldn't deviate from the list of questions that they gave me. And the very first question was, how do you feel? And I was just like, I can't fucking do this. Like, I can't. Yeah. He's like, you don't want to be a journalist. And I'm like, this isn't a journalist. Yeah. This is a tabloid operator trying to find something that will get readers going, oh, that's awful. And I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, this is one of the things that I know that a lot of people don't. The CBC has lots of faults. They have a lot of faults. I've done a couple of projects with them. They are a very slow-moving machine. They are. It's a whole thing to work with them, and no one's like very few people are getting rich off the CBC. However, one of the things I sort of appreciate about them is. Two things. Peter Zowski was a CBC radio guy, and he said, if we lose the CBC, it'll never happen again, which would be fine for some people. However, I think it'd be a travesty because, as well, I remember talking, one of the projects I was working with CBC on, it was for the Olympics, and the person who was helping me coordinate these filming times with the athletes, I had said to her, I wish the CBC was more like the BBC and like creating really exciting stuff and like being really glitzy and successful. And she said to me in total seriousness, and I respected it. I was like, what the hell? And then I respected it afterwards. She's like, it's not the CBC's mandate to be glitzy and successful. And I was like, that's kind of reassuring, actually. That's kind of great, The
glitzy part. I don't know about the successful part, but the glitzy part, right? Like, I was going to ask you. I was actually going to ask you if, because when I showed a couple clips to my wife, and she was like, I'm he looks familiar, and also my sister as well, and they both asked me the same thing. Is he on This Hour's 22 Minutes or Air Farce or whatever? And I'm like, I have no idea, but I don't think so. But I was really curious because I feel like it's impossible that you haven't been given like an offer of some sort for to play a role on one of those CBC shows.
No. No, they don't. No? They don't want to talk to me, man. They don't, not at all. They're too scared of my power. No, I'm just kidding.
That's right.
I think there's actually really
media.
Exactly. There's a massive divide between traditional media and social media, like a massive divide. I think it used to be the case where I think it's because of rather people in social media or content creators used to really be like, I'm going to use social media as a stepping stone to traditional media. And I think it became pretty evident fairly quickly. It's kind of like, no, I don't really want to. I mean, I've been offered two half-hour shows. And I'm like, no, I don't know if I want to do that. That sounds like a lot of work, and someone else gets to decide what goes on the air. That sounds crappy. I don't want to do that.
They didn't give you creative control?
Well, even if you have creative control, there's someone who can veto it. It doesn't matter. So you can make whatever you want. It just might not go to air, and then be like, well, you need to do something else because that's not happening.
Stewart, do they know who the fuck you are?
Apparently not, James.
Yeah, well,
damn it.
At least a little bit they do. Before I let you go, I wanted to I opened with that whole Ryan Reynolds thing.
Yeah.
And the reason why I opened with that actually is because I watched The Adam Project the day before I saw that clip.
Mm-hmm.
I fucking cried.
I know.
And I was like, and I literally thought until I saw your clip, I'm like, I gotta keep this to myself because I don't think anyone else cried. But I did. It was all the family shit. It was all the father-son stuff. It was You know, because I didn't have a greatest dad, and we were estranged when he died. And like, you know, my mission in life is to be a decent enough dad for my kids to like make sure that they follow everything their mom does and ignore me. But
Yeah.
like, you know, wow, I couldn't believe that. First of all, I'm crying in a Ryan Reynolds movie, which is embarrassing
know.
as it is, enough, right? But
Yeah.
but it was powerfully sad.
It was
And
like,
I'm glad I'm
that
not the only one. Yeah.
it was like a sucker punch, right? Because his films are always sort of like a bit sort of cocky and, you know, smug and
I didn't cry in
sarcastic.
Deadpool. You know?
No, exactly. Not one tear shed in Deadpool.
Yeah. A lot more death. Didn't cry once.
Well, one or two. Didn't cry at all. But then this one was like, yeah, I mean, it's so, I mean, I think that's why I liked the film, which was good. It was obviously kind of an homage to so many other films like, you know, Empire Strikes Back and Guardians of the Galaxy and, you know, Back to the Future and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, that's great. Who cares? That's usually you get the best stuff when you do homages. So that's fantastic to me.
And I think Ryan Reynolds might be, if he's not the inventor, he's the perfecter of where there's like a second or a half second in the movie where real life peeks in and then gets out a second. So when he's like, you mean like Biff in Back to the Future? He's like, don't.
Yeah.
And that's for us, right? Because he's like,
Totally.
don't bring up other, yeah. And
Yeah,
I like
don't
that.
talk about
I don't think anyone else does that the way he does, but.
Oh, he's a crazy, super nice guy and phenomenally generous in so many different ways and crazy talented as well. I mean, you know, we have S&G, which is a line of like vodka that's like got a hint of butter tart flavor to it. And the reason we started doing that is because he had sent me a case of his aviation gin, and I was like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So that's, you know, I admire him a lot. Even though he's younger than me, I look up to him. So.
Yeah. Well, he's very tall. He's very tall.
It's like 6'4", maybe, I think.
You're
It's
not
tall
tall
enough.
I'm imagining.
No, well, thanks for saying that, James. I really appreciate
I'm
that.
5'6", dude. Trust me, it's okay. You're gonna.
Oh,
be
that's
fine.
good. I'm 5'10". There you go. Whew. Okay,
Oh,
good.
well, I always think that the guys that I'm like, this guy's got to be 5'4". No, 5'10". I'm still the shortest guy in the world. So. Stewart Reynolds, aka Brittlestar, dude, it was amazing having you on the show. I suggest everyone out there to continue to watch his videos. I think what you're doing is not only really creative and fucking hilarious, but sorely needed in this day and age. And I thank you for joining me here on Black Bolt.
Thanks so much, Rob, man. It was lots of fun.
No problem, man. We'll talk to you soon. I love him. I do. I love him. I love Stewart Reynolds. He was a great guest. I strongly suggest everyone, if you haven't already, familiarize yourself with Brittlestar. He's that good. And yeah, it was a thrill having him on. Tomorrow on Blackballed, I will sit down with controversial veteran journalist Sue Ann Levy. And we have a lot to talk about, including the latest sort of chapter in the ongoing Mike Bullard saga. Yeah, don't miss that because that'll be fun. Thanks again for joining me, Stewart Reynolds, aka Brittlestar, and we'll talk soon. Okay. Cheers, buddy.